Good afternoon. Sorry for the very delayed start today. The President spoke earlier today with Kentucky Governor Matt Bevin and offered his deepest sympathies and condolences to the victims of the attack at Marshall County High School. We are preparing to leave tonight for Switzerland, where the President will be attending the World Economic Forum. Director Cohn and General McMaster did a great job previewing that trip to all of you yesterday, so I won't add too much more to their remarks. The President is very much looking forward to delivering the message to the world that America is open for business and that there is no better time in history to invest and create jobs here in the United States. As you all know, this week is National School Choice Week. Secretary DeVos has been a strong leader on this issue for many years, and she was doing a great job leading the charge at the Department of Education. The President released a proclamation officially declaring this National School Choice Week. To maintain our global leadership and strengthen our modern economy, he wrote, "America's education system must prepare students for the unforeseen challenges of the future by giving parents more control over their children's education. We are making strides toward a future of unprecedented educational attainment and freedom of choice." During National School Choice Week, I encourage parents to explore innovative and educational alternatives, and I challenge students to dream big and work hard for the futures they deserve. I also urge state and federal lawmakers to embrace school choice and enact policies that empower families and strengthen communities. On the nominations front, we were pleased to see the Senate confirm the President's highly qualified nominee to chair the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell. We're also pleased that the President's HHS Secretary nominee, Alex Azar, cleared his final procedural hurdle in the Senate on a bipartisan basis. We look forward to Mr. Azar's confirmation so we can continue working to lower health care costs and increase the quality of care for all Americans. Finally, before taking your questions, I'd like to deliver a statement and update regarding the path forward on immigration. Last fall, the White House sent Congress a list of the core reforms necessary to fix our immigration system. These reforms were assembled in coordination with frontline law enforcement officers and career public servants who know what is necessary to keep America safe. Since that time, President Donald J. Trump and his administration have hosted dozens of meetings with Republican and Democrat leadership and rank-and-file members of the House and Senate to discuss these reforms and find a bipartisan path forward. Based on these negotiations, the White House will release a legislative framework on Monday that represents a compromise that members of both parties can support. We encourage the Senate to bring it to the floor. This framework will fulfill the four agreed-upon pillars: securing the border and closing legal loopholes, ending extended family chain migration, canceling the visa lottery, and providing a permanent solution on DACA. After decades of inaction by Congress, it's time we work together to solve this issue once and for all. The American people deserve no less. And with that, I'll take your questions. Zeke.
Thanks, sir. First on that immigration announcement, does that legislative framework you said of it as a permanent solution for DACA, does that include a path to citizenship for the recipients?
Well, if I told you now, it would kind of take away the fun for Monday. We will, again, as I said, be rolling out some of the specifics of the framework of that legislation that we'd like to see on Monday. I'm not going to get ahead. I'm not going to go any further than we have in laying out the principles we already have over the last several days.
And separately, you mentioned the Davos trip. Secretary Mnuchin made some news over there earlier today when he said that when he supported that he was pleased to see that there was a weaker dollar. That was a break from previous Treasury secretaries. Does that reflect accurately the President's view of U.S. currency?
Look, currently we have a very stable dollar because of how well the U.S. is doing, and it's as powerful as it's ever been, and therefore it's the reserve currency of the world, and that's the official position of the White House. Celia?
It's not the weak. It's not so. The White House prefers a strong dollar versus a weaker dollar.
Again, we believe in free-floating currency. The President's always believed in that, and we have, like I said, a very stable dollar, in large part to how well the U.S. economy is doing right now. Cecilia.
Does the President make a habit of asking career government officials their voting habits?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Did he ask Andrew McCabe how he voted?
Look, the President and Andrew McCabe have had limited and pretty non-substantive conversations. I can't get into the details of what was discussed. I wasn't there. There are widespread reports of his retirement. We're making sure that we're focused on the FBI and DOJ is serving all Americans fairly and efficiently, and we're going to move forward from there.
That's kind of a yes or no question. He did or didn't ask.
I wasn't in the room. I don't know what was discussed. I know he didn't ask me, so I can tell you that. Pamela?
But does the president trust the FBI and the people who work at the FBI?
He certainly has 100% confidence in Director Wray, and that's why he put him there. He feels like he is the right person to lead the FBI. As I've said many times before, he has confidence in the rank and file members of the FBI. We're not going to let a few bad actors tarnish the entire group. But that's why Director Wray is there, and he feels like any changes that need to be made, he will make those changes. Kevin.
Thank you, Sarah. The Justice Department is threatening 23 so-called sanctuary cities, including New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles, with subpoenas if they fail to provide documents to show whether local law enforcement officials are sharing information with federal immigration authorities. What's the White House's view on this? And the fallout from that appears to have affected the attendance of some mayors to today's event. If you would comment on that, I appreciate it.
The White House has been very clear that we don't support sanctuary cities. We support enforcing the law and following the law. And that is the Department of Justice's job, is to do exactly that. And if mayors have a problem with that, they should talk to Congress, the people that pass the laws. Department of Justice enforces them, and as long as that is the law, the Department of Justice is going to strongly enforce it.
How will that impact the White House's relationship with some of the larger city mayors in this country, with whom this White House is pledged to not only work hand in hand on some major policy issues, in particular with infrastructure?
Look, we would love to be able to work with these mayors, particularly on issues like infrastructure and other things, but we cannot allow people to pick and choose what laws they want to follow. If we have a country with no laws, then nothing matters. So we cannot allow a few individual people to decide that they don't want to follow the rules. You guys wouldn't be allowed to do that in your own networks and outlets, and the federal government cannot allow people to act independently and completely ignore the law. Major.
In the development of this compromise framework that you're going to release on Monday, how closely did the president and his staff work with the House Republican leadership?
Look, we've been working with both House and Senate members. We've had dozens of conversations with them, and the framework that you see on Monday will be born out of a lot of those conversations that we've had with a number of members, both Republicans, Democrats, House and Senate.
Would it be the president's belief that once that's presented, that would be a package that could pass the House of Representatives?
We'd certainly like to think so. Again, we've taken into account all of the conversations that we've had, both at the presidential and the staff level, and tried to incorporate that into what we think addresses all of the different things that we've heard from the various stakeholders throughout the last several months.
Would be able to pass the House and the Senate, and that's the
I don't think a legislative package that can't pass both houses doesn't help us much.
You understand the difference. The perception is in the Senate, it would come down in one form and would not be passable in the House. My question is, do you think you can bridge that? And is the point of this framework, based on your conversations, to do precisely that?
Absolutely. We want to see a legislative package that addresses the four things that we've laid out that can pass both the House and the Senate and make it to the president's desk so that we can help actually fix our immigration system.
And therefore it's different than what you've previously discussed either with Senator Schumer or Lindsey Graham or Dick Durbin or Representative Goodlatte.
It addresses the four principles that we've talked about all along, and we think, again, takes into account all of the conversations that we've had over the last several months. John?
Thanks a lot, Sarah. Steve Bannon, the former chief strategist for the president, in the next few weeks will likely come before the special counsel's office to submit to an interview with the special counsel's office. Will the president be invoking executive privilege to prevent any part of his testimony?
I can't speak to the specifics of that. I can tell you that the White House has been fully cooperative and will continue to do so.
The privilege of executive privilege is one that only the president can invoke, and as you may recall, he did not invoke it for when former FBI Director James Comey testified before the Senate Intelligence Committee. As you've mentioned many times, the president has mentioned many times, there is no collusion.
I'm glad you guys are starting to echo that too.
Yeah, we hear it a lot.
If you could say it more and more when you're on your networks, that'd be really helpful.
Why would the president want to invoke executive privilege? After all, he didn't do so for the former FBI director.
Look, I'm not going to walk through hypothetical conversations or negotiate with you guys. That's something that the attorneys are going to do. I can tell you, once again, the White House will remain and continue to be fully cooperative with the special counsel and allow them to work through their process. Right here. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the president on immigration seems to have positioned himself in the center between the House and the Democrats in the Senate. The Democrats seem to be moving further left and pulling bait and switch on border wall funding. What is the benefit of the president being in that position as negotiations move forward?
Look, the president's in the position to lay out a framework. There's nothing currently on the table that addresses all of the concerns that we feel like brings all of this various stakeholders to the table, like this framework does. And the president wants to lead on this issue, and that's exactly what we're going to do, and you'll see more details of that on Monday. Kristen?
Thanks. What was the president's reaction to learning that his former national security advisor, Michael Flynn, didn't immediately tell him that he was interviewed by the FBI here at the White House?
Look, as you know, I'm not going to get into the details of anything on this case. If you have specific questions on that, you'd have to reach out to the special counsel.
Frustrated by that?
I haven't spoken to him about that specific issue.
Last time as he spoke with Michael Flynn?
I'm not sure.
And does the president still think that Michael Flynn is a quote-unquote wonderful man?
I haven't asked him since he made that statement.
One final question, Sarah. You told Cecilia that you hadn't asked the president whether he asked how Andrew McCabe had voted. That's one of the stories that's the leading story of the day. You didn't talk
It's
to
not
the
the leading
president?
story that most Americans care about.
To the president about one of the
even
big
all of the
stories?
polling that any person in here would take, I very seriously doubt that any person in America would list that as an issue they care about. And frankly, that's what we're focused
Can you
on.
ask him and get us an answer?
I'll let you know. John?
Thank you, Sarah. Two brief questions. First, housekeeping matter. It has been reported unofficially that the president will host French President Emmanuel Macron and his wife at his first state dinner coming up this April, I believe. Will you confirm that President Macron will be his guest and make a state visit here?
Yes, I can confirm that that will be the first state visit. The date is still being finalized, and we don't have that yet done, but as soon as we do, we'll certainly let you know.
And my other question is, recently, district courts in Moscow have ruled that Mr. Navalny, the dissident against the Kremlin, will not be allowed on the ballot, and he repeatedly has run into efforts that have kept him from having a competitive election against President Putin. Does the White House have any feelings about that and about the Russian elections?
I'll have to get back to you on that one. Fred?
Thanks, Sarah. I have two questions. First, could you comment on the president nominating Charles Reddick to be the IRS commissioner?
We don't have any personnel announcements on that front at this point.
Okay. And another question. In light of the fake news awards last week, wanted to ask, there's been some reports about how the EU Commission has set up a panel to investigate fake news. Other European democracies, allies, have set up panels to look into fake news, saying that they're trying to protect democracy. This has some people concerned about governments actually looking in, deciding what's truth and not true. Can you say, in light of what the president has talked about in fake news, that this is not something the U.S. government should ever do?
Look, we certainly believe in a free press, but we also believe in a fair and accurate press. Hunter?
Thank you, Sarah. Was the president speaking more metaphorically when he promised to build a solid wall that was over 30 to 50 feet high along the border?
Look, the president's always guaranteed he's going to build a wall, and that's exactly what he intends to do. Over the past several years, I know he's talked about what that could look like. In some places, we have natural barriers that you don't actually need the wall, and in other places where it is desperately needed as determined by law enforcement officials and DHS, that's where we would put the wall. Maggie?
What does his actual vision of the wall look like, though?
I think you'll see some more of those details laid out in the framework on Monday.
From the 30 to 50 foot physical barrier?
Again, you'll see some of the details laid out on Monday. Maggie?
Thanks, Sarah. The President has said repeatedly there was no collusion between the campaign and Russia. Can you define what he means when he says collusion? Is he talking about meetings between officials? Is he talking about information exchanging hands? What does that
Look, I think
mean?
the accusation against the president is that he had help winning the election, and that's simply untrue. The president won because he was the better candidate, because he worked harder, because he had a message that America actually cared about and believed in, and came out in a historic fashion and supported and voted for him. That's why he won. It wasn't because of some made-up hoax that has been created to delegitimize this president. It's because he was the best candidate at the right time that America wanted to see, and that's why he's in the Oval Office today.
Sarah, just to follow up, does he think that the reporting from the intelligence community saying that there was hacking that went on done by Russia, he rejects that?
No, he's addressed that, but that doesn't mean that he participated in it. I think those are very different things. Stating the existence of something happening is very different than having helped make it happen, and you can't conflate the two. And I think oftentimes that's what individuals are trying to do.
Right. Does he mean that about himself or about campaign officials? When he says collusion between the campaign, does he mean himself, or does he mean that no one on his campaign could have known anything?
Look, I think he's stating for himself and to anything that he would be a part of or know about or have sanctioned, but that would be something that, again, I think he's very clearly laid out. He and his campaign had nothing to do with. Roberta.
Sarah, you talked about the stability of the U.S. dollar. But today when Secretary Mnuchin spoke about the U.S. dollar, his remarks sent the dollar down to a 3-year low. So I'm wondering whether the White House has concerns about the way he casually talked about the value of the dollar, and whether you can say unequivocally whether the White House believes in a strong dollar policy.
Yeah, as I said, we also believe in a free-floating currency, and that's always been the president's belief. We still very strongly believe that we have a stable dollar, and that's a good thing, and that's why it is the reserve currency. I don't have anything else further to add on that front. Sajir?
Thanks, Sarah. Does the White House still maintain its commitment to Representative Meadows and to Senator Tom Cotton that they would have a consultation and sign off on any bill, and were they consulted in this legislative training?
Again, we've been consulting with both of those individuals as well as a number of other members of Congress and incorporated a lot of those thoughts and ideas into this framework that you'll see on Monday. Take one last question, Peter.
Sarah, let me ask you. On Tuesday, it was a high school in Kentucky. Monday, a school cafeteria outside Dallas, a charter school parking lot in New Orleans as well. There have been 11 shootings at schools in the first 23 days of this year. In October, after the Vegas shooting, you said it was an unspeakable tragedy from that podium, said it was a day for consoling survivors and mourning those who we lost. But you said there's a time and place for political debate. What has the president done in the time since October to try to prevent any of these shootings from taking place?
Look, I think first and foremost to recognize that any loss of life is incredibly sad, and any shooting at any school across this country is something that should never happen. Students fearing for their lives while they're attempting to get an education is unacceptable. Certainly in this administration and by this administration. The president believes that all Americans deserve to be safe in their schools and in their communities. We've had 2 years of increased violence prior to the president taking office. We've tried to crack down on crime throughout the country. The president instructed his administration to make the recent crime wave a top priority. Some of the things that they've accomplished in that process and been focused on is they've charged more defendants with violent crime offenses than in any year in decades. They've charged the most federal firearm prosecutions in a decade, and they've convicted 1,200 gang members and took down numerous drug trafficking organizations, all in an attempt to help create safer and better communities and certainly safer schools. Thanks so much,
Wait,
guys.
Sarah, to be clear, you said we all agree that we want students to be safe at schools. That's not in dispute. And we all agree we don't want there to be crime. But what is the president specifically doing? You guys said at the time today was not the day, but we should have these policies.
I just read off a lot of the things that he's doing.
We should have a policy conversation. So the question is, what is the policy the president's willing to pursue or actively direct others to pursue to help make sure that these students are safe?
Look, I know the Department of Justice instructed ATF to do a thorough review on a number of firearm provisions. That is ongoing, and it will be submitted to the Office of Management and Budget. We're going through that process. That policy review and that policy discussion is taking place. At the same time, the President has instructed the Department of Justice to crack down and make the crime wave that took place long before the President ever came into office a major priority. And you're seeing that happen. You're seeing a Department of Justice that is being active, empowering its law enforcement to crack down on crime. And that's what those results that I just read out to you show, is that they're putting a focus on that.
Shootings seem to be their own category. We agree we don't want crime.
I think they're part of a crime wave, absolutely. I don't think you can completely separate the two. They are a part of domestic violence, and I think that it certainly would be part of a crime wave that we are focused on addressing, and you can see some of the things that we've done since taking office.
For the nation and tell Americans how he feels about this issue and try to do what he can with the bully pulpit
I think
to help.
he has, Peter. I mean, to sit there and question, I'm sorry, hold on. I was polite and let you finish, but let me be very clear on this. The fact that you're basically accusing the president of being complicit in a school shooting is outrageous.
It's his advertisement that accuses the Democrats of being complicit on a different topic. I'm not accusing the president of anything.
Ignoring the fact of the safety and security of our borders is very different. The president has been very clear and instructed the top law enforcement agency in this country to crack down on crime and to do everything they can to prevent these types of things. We've talked about it here numerous times, and we're going to continue moving forward in that process. Thanks, guys.
Sir, is the president still 100% willing to speak with Mueller?
Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Briefing Room. Coming to you from the Washington Bureau of ABC News, I'm John Santucci alongside Devin Dwyer. You came back for more?
I did. I'm here. Big day. A lot of bombshells today. Sarah getting a little hot under the collar there under questioning about what the president is doing on gun policy. Opioid policy, another one of those areas that he promised to do a lot, hasn't gotten a lot done. But the big story today is, of course, the Mueller investigation.
Yeah, we are red hot and focused on the Russia probe from Capitol Hill all the way to what's going on at the Department of Justice. We learned overnight that more key members of the president's cabinet and inner circle met with Bob Mueller and his investigators a year ago. And now we're learning that Jeff Sessions met in the last couple of days. This is all revving up to what happened in the Oval Office just a couple months ago when President Trump allegedly asked FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe who he voted for. Our senior White House correspondent Cecilia Vega asked the White House that question today. Let's take a listen.
Thanks. Does the president make a habit of asking career government officials their voting habits?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Did he ask Andrew McCabe how he voted?
Look, the president and Andrew McCabe have had limited and pretty non-substantive conversations. I can't get into the details of what was discussed. I wasn't there. There are widespread reports of his retirement. We're making sure that we're focused on the FBI and DOJ is serving all Americans fairly and efficiently, and we're going to move forward from there.
But that's a kind of a yes or no question. He did or didn't ask.
I wasn't in the room. I don't know what was discussed. I know he didn't ask me, so I can tell you that.
Well, we know he didn't ask Sarah, but it doesn't mean he didn't ask Andrew McCabe.
And it wasn't a denial. And in fact, sources have told ABC News that he did ask the deputy director who he voted for. Just another chip in this piece of this puzzle, this picture we're getting now of the president constantly obsessed about loyalty, but also fixated on the politics at the FBI. And of course, McCabe at the center of that. His wife was running a big figure in Democratic politics in Virginia, took some campaign contributions from Hillary Clinton associates. So certainly a fixation of his and part of the White House messaging today that there are bad actors at the FBI.
Yeah, and also trying to figure out what Jeff Sessions is doing, right? We know that Sessions was allegedly putting pressure on the new FBI director, Christopher Wray, to clean house, actually take some people that were loyal to Jim Comey out. This has been circling for months. We know that it's been all over Bob Mueller's targets, but also over on Capitol Hill. I want to bring in our senior congressional correspondent, Mary Bruce, on this. And Mary, we know that members of Congress, whether it be the House or Senate Intelligence Committees, the Senate Judiciary Committee, their probes have not even gotten to a midway point. They're still going, still calling witnesses. Many wondering, though, what is happening behind closed closed doors in an example like this McCabe meeting with the president?
Yeah, look, I think members of Congress have the same questions that you all are raising there, some of the same questions that were asked by journalists in the briefing today. Look, they want to get to the bottom of this as much as the rest of the public does. But all of the investigations here on the Hill obviously are completely separate from what the special counsel is looking into. And our sources tell us, look, that they want to make sure that while they are looking into many of similar things, similar aspects here, that they give the Mueller investigation, of course, plenty of room, which is why you may see, a lot of the same witnesses coming up, people here on the Hill speaking to some of the same players that the special counsel is. But these are very different investigations, even if it may seem that they are running on parallel tracks here.
And the question's always been, when is this actually going to wrap up? Is it getting there? I'm going to put somebody on the spot who's joining us for another topic, but I think he can do it. Our chief foreign affairs correspondent, Terry Moran, also covers the Supreme Court for us, also covered the White House in a past life. Terry, I know you're watching this from afar, mainly because you're emailing all of us all day about it. What's your take on this? This does not seem like it's wrapping up to us. It certainly seems like the heat is only intensifying around the White House. What is the next thing to happen here for the president as far as this investigation? Is he actually, you think, going to go in and do an interview with Bob Mueller's investigators?
Well, I'm sure that Mueller's investigators want to interview him, John, and what I see is Mueller doing a very diligent and careful job. He's talking to absolutely everyone who might be involved in the issues he was assigned to investigate. What I cannot read is whether he's got anything or not. This could just be due diligence. He's just talking to the people he needs to talk to. I think every time he interviews somebody close to Trump, there's this sense that erupts that maybe he's got something. Maybe he's just doing his job. And as for McCabe, I'm going to play devil's advocate here a little bit. The president is the chief executive. Every executive has a right to hire and fire. Pretty much everybody works for him. And in this instance, with McCabe's wife being politically involved, while it may be unseemly, you can understand where Trump is coming from. So I do think that until we actually get a sense that Mueller's hit pay dirt in the way that this investigation has been built up, what we might have is just smoke, 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 and then no fire.
And one of the next big moments, of course, Terry, is when this president will meet with Mueller. The circumstances remain to be negotiated, but I got to imagine, and your expert legal mind can perhaps shed some light on this, that the president's legal team is trying to limit his legal exposure for any interview.
If you've ever read a Donald Trump deposition, you do not want him getting in front of an experienced prosecutor like Bob Mueller, because he just goes like he does pretty much naturally. What you see is what you get with Donald Trump. That's the source of some of his political popularity. But in a criminal legal proceeding, that's dangerous. So there's no question they will want to hammer out an agreement that limits his exposure, limits the kinds of questions that he can be asked, so they can prep him and try and keep him disciplined to stay on message. He's got a lot at stake in any kind of encounter. There are, precedents, obviously, for presidents to answer questions under oath before prosecutors. It is a very dangerous thing, and it's not something we really want to make a practice of in some ways. But this looks like it will come off at some point in the, I'd say, pretty near future. Because it feels to me like Mueller's wrapping up, doesn't it?
No, not at all. I think we have a long way to go with this investigation, and we have to wait and see when that formal request for an interview for the president to come and meet with Mueller is actually going to come. Terry, stay there. I know you're cold in Davos. We're going to get back to you in a quick second. But I do just want to switch gears quickly. The other topic that was announced, we know that Monday is going to be a big day for all of us. You coordinate all the coverage here, so God help you on Monday.
It's been a wild week. The White House on the Hill shutdown madness, immigration madness, and let's go back to Mary Bruce. After a shutdown over immigration that lasted about 3 days, it does seem like we're back at square one. The clock is ticking. They've only extended government funding for a couple more weeks, Mary, and it sounds like the wall deal that was there is now off the table.
Yeah, that deal, we know the previous deal that was on the table is now off the table. But the big news that Sarah Sanders made in the briefing was announcing that come Monday, the White House is going to release what she said was a legislative framework for immigration, essentially giving some more detail on what the president is really looking for here in terms of an immigration deal to protect dreamers. And that may satisfy a lot of lawmakers up here. Look, we've seen lawmakers on both sides of the aisle saying as much as lawmakers can spew around different ideas up here, can try to come together to make some progress on this, until they know what the president is willing to sign, what he actually supports, it's really hard to feel like you're making progress here on the Hill. The big question then becomes, what does this framework really look like? How detailed will this be? Because you'll recall the president has already kind of outlined the general specific areas where he wants to see some progress. They want to do something to protect dreamers. The president very keen to see some boosted border security, something that can qualify as that wall that he promised his supporters. He also wants to end family reunification, what the White House calls chain migration, and also the visa lottery program. But will he be more specific in a way that actually gives lawmakers some kind of roadmap? Because let's remind everyone of sort of the state of play here. The Hill now has less than 3 weeks, I think 16 days for those who are counting, to come up with some kind of plan in the Senate to protect dreamers before we're up against another shutdown deadline. Guys, we've gone even nerdier and looked at the month even more specifically and found that's only 6 working days when the Senate and the House are in session to get something done here. And that's another big X factor. It's not just the president, but it's also the House. Because even if Senate Republicans are promising to act on dreamers, the House over there, Republicans have made no such similar promise. And over there, you have these concerns from the hardline immigration, hardline conservatives who want to do something that takes things more to the right. And what will satisfy them and whether that can pass? Look, I have to tell you, it's entirely possible that come February, beginning of February, we could be right back where this all started. We could be up against another shutdown deadline, more concerns about dreamers at the center of this debate. It's entirely possible that this is just the beginning of this. I hate to say it. It feels a little bit like Groundhog Day up here, guys.
Always back to the beginning. Mary Bruce on Capitol Hill, thank you. Let's go down the block to the White House, where Arlette Saenz was also watching the briefing today. And Arlette, we know the White House is getting armed and ready for Davos. We're going to bring Terry into this conversation, too. Because, Arlette, this is the first time a sitting president will go to this summit since Bill Clinton.
That's right. And you'll also know that Donald Trump, when he was a businessman, was not invited to go to Davos. So now he is going to be going there as president of the United States. And folks will have to listen to him. There's actually an interesting moment earlier today where the Secretary of Transportation, Elaine Chao, said that if you don't want to listen to the president, you don't have to. But he's going to be going over there touting his America First policies. And also, as the White House has been saying over the past few days, saying that America is open for business. And so it's going to be interesting to see what his interactions are with some of these world leaders. He's made a few controversial comments in recent months, and we'll be meeting with people like the UK's Theresa May and also the president of Rwanda, who's the head of the African Union. So a lot to look towards, not only with economic policy, but also just on the general foreign policy front.
And Terry Moran, what's at stake for Donald Trump on the world stage right now, especially at this type of meeting at this moment?
Well, I think that the European leaders have framed this as an opportunity to have a great debate in front of the world. Donald Trump is a disruptor of the system that really this place, Davos, and the conference that's happened every year, helped build that globalizing system that integrated economies around the world. And both Angela Merkel and Emmanuel Macron and Theresa May are all coming here, and I bet they've coordinated their messages a bit. One of the other things that I have to tell you is that the first year of Donald Trump's presidency, officials in governments here in Europe and in the Middle East, they all were studying and poring over every sentence he spoke, every speech he gave, trying to figure out, okay, what does this America First policy mean? What is the vision here? What's his strategy? And as we enter year 2, I think they've decided, you know, the strategy is not a policy that we need to respond to, but it's a personality that we need to manage. There isn't a lot for them to go on, and I think what they're looking towards is to see what mood Donald Trump is in and how to manage that. I think what you're seeing in capitals around the world is that this is a presidency where personality, not political vision, is really what's driving. He has instincts. It's not exactly like he has a strategic vision. He can, as he himself says, change his mind on a dime. And I think that makes it very tricky for people to deal with.
Reading into the Trumpisms. Terry, real quick before I let you go, 9 feet of snow in Davos. How are you guys getting around right now?
You brought your skis, Terry. You having some fondue tonight, Terry?
You know, I grew up in the Midwest, so I do the cross-country skiing. I'm not getting on that hill, but it's actually really nice. We walked here, so it's cool but very beautiful here.
Okay.
Thanks for being here, Terry.
Very much appreciated. Terry Moran in Davos, thank you. Thanks so much for joining us for the briefing room today. Don't forget to download the ABC News app for all the latest. For Devin Dwyer, I'm John Santucci, and we'll be back next time there's a briefing. Have a great day.